Well, is there anyone else that wants to add any other stories or make any comments about agreements and assumptions they have seen or know about or want to share with people? Maybe it wasn't a personal experience, but maybe it's something that you saw somebody else make an agreement with. So please, for anyone, please step up and join us.
Yeah, Bob, as in a bigger view, I'm looking at how people have agreed to the systems of the world. And this is what most people just take for granted, that the world is supposed to be like this, or it just developed into the way it is, through all the evolution. But actually, if you really take a good look at it, all the systems, the medical, educational, political, religious, spiritual, economic, all these systems are based on agreements. And unfortunately, the agreements have been manipulated by the controllers who want to control the people and the masses and the public into certain lines. So it doesn't have to be this way. The point is, like, people just think, well, this is the way life is. This is the way, we participated in it. That's another thing, that we vote. So we elected these politicians. We as a whole, we developed the life we have here. But in essence, there's a nefarious movement behind the scenes that, no, it's not like that at all. The public has no actually input at all. You think your vote matters at all? It's just ridiculous that a person would even consider that their vote would mean anything, the way the politics is set up right now. So taking nothing for granted might be a better position for a person. Belonging or agreeing to no system would maybe be a better position for somebody, because they'd have a better view or more objective view of what is actually taking place in the world. So it's where they've made it so easy for people to be dumbed down. I mean, they actually make it easy for you to be stupid here. And that's what their game is, their psychological game, to make it so easy that people are comfortable and safe, secure, but then they add the stress factor to it too. So people are agitated at the same time, and they make this reality for people that it's so easy to agree to, and then they're trapped. Like you say, that they're they're trapped into this zone of going nowhere. And but the point is, again, it's like it's everything here that people see. It's all the systems are like that. There's no relief. So the only way out, the only cure, is through the new presentation and becoming more aware. And that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Val. And that's what these things that you take for granted, those are the subconscious agreements, and they're so insidious. And I was just thinking of one I saw last week. I was listening to Coast to Coast, and they had this high-level Christian minister on, and his specialty was casting out demons, okay? Well, as we all know from the real side, that a lot of these demons that possess people are sent there by the Kalaum God himself. The God of the third heaven is in charge of these demons and tells them has control over these demons that go into somebody's body and acts up. And so here you have a Christian minister whose God is the Kalaum God, and it's the same Kalaum God that directs the demons that possess people. And the insidious part of this is the minister would go in to somebody's house and they would cast out the demon, and the demon would run off into wherever they went, and the guy would get down on his hands and knees and thank God for being so faithful and working with him, and being such a wonderful, loving God that he would cast the demons out of these people to make them whole again, when it's the same God running both sides of the coin. It's, and these ministers that cast out the demons have no clue that the God they're worshiping is the same God that sent the demon, and so of course their God, the Christian God, is going to cast out the demons because they want you to believe in him. But little do they know that, as I said, both sides of the coin are run by the same operation. And it's the three-headed God he's known as Kalaum or the Kal, and the influence, the third head of the God is actually the Holy Spirit of the Bible. The Bible calls him the Holy Spirit because when the Kalaum God had the Bible written, he wanted the Holy Spirit to be a very big part of the Bible, and of course the Holy Spirit is the third head, the influence of the Kalaum God. So it comes round circle. But if you're in the middle of all this, it's a insidious trap that traps you in, and every time, it's like, the Kalaum God gets you in a war zone, gets you in a foxhole, and you're dodging bullets, and you're about ready to be overrun and killed by the enemy, and you pray to God, and all of a sudden the bad guys go away and you live, and you think, oh, thank God, I've been saved by God, so I'm going to give everything that I have to the church, and thank you, for saving my life. Well, the little part, the little soldier boy doesn't realize is it was the Kalaum God that caused him to be in the foxhole in the first place. It's so insidious, these subconscious agreements that we make. Well, anybody else like to add anything?
Yes, this is Claudia in Texas.
Claudia, go ahead, please.
Thank you. A friend sent me a text recently on my phone about the continents of Lemuria and Atlantis. And some people believe they exist and some people don't. It just depends on your viewpoint. One of the things that this person said, well, what's your viewpoint on it? And I said, I remember having dreams about living in Atlantis. And before I start the story, I just want to, and it'll be quick, I just want to say, if anybody watches sci-fi television, there is a series, a TV series called Stargate SG-1. And there are many versions of that particular television story. Some of it has to do with setting in Atlantis. And what is interesting about the story is that the premise of the Atlantis is that Atlantis exists on Earth. And I personally believe it did. But in the story, the plot over the last several years, the audience has been informed that this Atlantis, quote unquote, exists on another star system. So they reach it by going through a Stargate. And one of the things when I first had my first dream about living in Atlantis was, well, how can I be this person living in Atlantis and having experiences when this is not what the way it says it is in history? Because it was way different. And so finally I got my answer. There's more than one Atlantis. There is an Atlantis on every star system. There's a Lemuria on every star system. There are bad reptilians in every star system. There are good reptilians in every star system. It's just a simple story that is repeated over and over again for living creatures to experience life and learn about the all-is. And you go, well, how can that be? How can that be? I don't understand. It's easy to find the answer. All you have to do is sing you, 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 and ask at night before you go to bed or ask in the morning when you get up, I'd like to know the answer to this question. One thing for sure is that you get the answer immediately, but we may not recognize it. It's like if in the olden days, if you showed somebody a peanut sheller or a corn cob stripper or something like that, or you go to a mechanic shop and you see various types of tools, wrenches and hammers and screwdrivers and so on and so forth. If you'd never seen one before, you would not recognize it as, oh, this is a hammer. You would just see an object. So if we live many lifetimes over and over again, we gather information, but it is only brought back up to us as we allow it to happen in our lives by asking for it. It's a simple question. Ask what happens in one of my lifetimes. What does it have to do with today? So yes, there are many, many opportunities to see different things of your life by just simply asking and singing you, as demonstrated by Sandy. It's simple, it's easy, doesn't cost you anything, 15 minutes of your time, and you can see another side of life. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Claudia. That was wonderful. That was very interesting. I love that show, Stargate. Was it Robert Anderson? I think it was. Anyway, he one thing that show brought out that I thought was really interesting is there was one group of aliens that you could tell they were aliens because their eyes would get real bright, kind of lighten up real white occasionally, and that was kind of like you could tell if you were paying attention, you could tell that they were aliens because their eyes they'd open up their eyes really wide, and you see that a lot today. I think they were trying to tell us something. When you're watching different people like newscasters or politicians, and even sports, they'll be talking, and all of a sudden they open up their eyes real wide, like as wide as they will go for just a moment, and their eyebrows go up, and then they return back to normal again. And that a lot of those we have identified as being reptilian or having very high levels of blue blood reptilian blood, and some of them are actually shape-shifting reptilians, and that was one way you could identify it, as brought out on the Stargate show. Well, anyway, is there anybody else that would like to add a last-minute idea, share assumptions or agreements they've seen and really wonder about, or maybe something that simply just does not make sense, why people agree to it? So please go ahead if you got any last-minute thoughts on it.
Hi, this is Tim again in Oregon. I was just thinking about what Sandy wrote about what Duane the Great Writer had in one of his New Adventure Is series books about this idea of death and the idea that we can decide to stay around in a 20-year-old body if we want. With no example that I know of in life, it's just hard to imagine how we can decide to stay in a 20-year-old body.
Well, if you look at the real guides like Rebisar, what is he going on, 500, 600 years now? And then you have the other ones. Tanny knows them.
Well, there's Gopal Das, there's Laetzi, and Yabul Sakabi. Well, Yabul Sakabi's age goes thousands of years back. I'm not sure how Gopal Das is, but he was lived during the time in the physical, during the time of Egypt, so he's quite old too.
I know of one guy that doesn't have anything to do with the real guides, but this guy heard of of a modern drug that costs like $100,000, and this guy was telling us about it on Coast to Coast probably 5 years ago or more, and he discovered that by taking this drug you could agree to reduce your age. So he gave it to his 85-year-old mother, and his 85-year-old mother started reducing her age, and she kept getting younger and younger and younger until she stopped at 35 years old, and now she's out every day playing tennis on the tennis courts, beating up on the 20-year-olds in tennis. And by now her physical age should be 90, but her physical age is 35, and so she made the agreement to get younger, and it really worked for her. But the thing with the real guides, you know, we have so many real guides. The ones like Rebisar, he's relatively young, 500 or 600 years old, and he looks about what? 35. How much? 35. Yeah, he looks about 35. And the other ones that are somewhere around 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years old, actually there would be a lot more real guides, you know, probably 5,000 or 10,000 years old. But as people like us come and take over the mission and become real guides ourselves, these older real guides that never died, you know, that maybe are 5,000 years old or whatever, have chosen to do other missions in the real universes, so they just moved on, and that's why we don't see a bunch of 100,000 or million-year-old people that have never died, because they just moved on. But no, it's the real deal. It absolutely is. So, yeah, and Tim, thank you very much for sharing that. But it's real. It is absolutely, definitely real. Did you want to add anything more, Tim?
Well, it's one thing for us to be thinking that just by deciding to be 20-some years old, that we're going to be 20-some years old. That's what I'm trying to get at here, is the awareness of how we decide. Like Tomo Gishig or something, that sounds like he's still in his physical body and that the elements of Earth don't affect him. It is all fascinating until a person has real experiences to even wonder about how.
Well, you know, it's my comeback for you is, if we spend, let's say, 100,000 lifetimes or maybe even 1,000,000 lifetimes knowing that we're going to die when we're 30 or 50 or 80 years old, it's a tough chore to make the switch in one lifetime. You have all that old self stuff stuck in your psyche that makes it very difficult to undo those thousands and thousands of lifetimes of thinking that you're going to die. So that's why I say let's call on the real guides, because the real guides can show you how to do it. The real guides, they can help you reduce your age and step right out into the real universes. So we've forgotten how to do that. We have all these attachments that we've attached to that are still part of our other bodies. It's not just our physical body. We have our astral, causal body, mental body, our etheric, subconscious bodies. These are all affecting our physical. And so we have to get them all straightened out before we can make the switch. And that's where the real guides can help us do that. But it's very possible. But you're right. Just on the surface, it seems like a insurmountable task to change your age overnight just by wishing it. No, there's more to it than that. You have to clean up your body, and then you can move forward. And right now, only the real guides have the ability to show us how to clean up our personal selves and face ourselves and realize what we have done to cause us to think that we have to age as we do. So I hope that helps a little bit. Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Tim. That's a great question you brought up. All right, got time for maybe one last question, then we're going to have to close it up for today. All right, going once, twice. All right, closing comments. All right, I need to say the times are changing rapidly. Whereas before, all you needed was real guidance to see the all is and move on into the higher universes. But because of the short time that we have left on planet Earth, the game has recently changed. You now not only have to see the all is, you have to actively participate in helping others to see also. You must step up. And that's it for the show today, everyone. I think everybody on board could do New You by themselves if you would like to join in. Tim, would you like to do a New You for us?
Yeah. New You.
Lottie? Val?
New you.
Okay, and Sandy and I will finish up. New you. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. You were wonderful, and we will see you in our next show, and I think we have one scheduled for next week. So thank you so much for joining us. Bye now.